Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue à notre deuxième semaine. J'espère que vous avez eu une bonne fin de semaine. Euh, je réalise que la semaine dernière, on a eu des difficultés techniques avec le site web. So the LMS, I think, was unavailable to some students. I don't know if it was tied to the whole Rogers fiasco or not. So merci à ceux d'entre vous qui m'ont envoyé votre travail par courriel. So if you sent your work by email, that's great. If you haven't had a chance to submit it yet, please take a couple minutes to get your work into the Dropbox. Si vous n'avez pas fini votre tâche numéro 3 sur votre MAD pour la journée, s'il vous plaît, faites certain de nous la remettre. Pour les 3 premières semaines de ce cours, il est possible d'être flexible avec les dates d'échéance. So for the first 3 weeks, even 3.5 weeks, due dates we can be pretty flexible. It's kind of at the end of the course, so the last day to submit things, which I need to just, Monsieur Levac and I need to confirm exactly what the last day that we can accept work will be. That last day will be a firm deadline because we have to have our report cards and comments and marks all done fairly quickly after we're done the course. So that will kind of put a limit on when we can accept your work. So if you could, I appreciate that. So for those of you that are unable to kind of meet the deadlines we set, I appreciate that you're reaching out to us to let us know. So that's great. Just don't worry too much for the first kind of 3 weeks. You don't want to fall far behind, but just know that we can be pretty flexible for these first 3 weeks. It's that last kind of 2-3 days of the course where we'll have to be a little bit more firm with our deadlines. OK, so le travail d'aujourd'hui, so on va avoir on a une autre feuille de travail. So on va regarder à la Constitution canadienne. So on va voir le document dans quelques instants, mais je savais que vous ne devez pas répondre question numéro 6. So that's question number 6. You don't have to do. That's something I forgot to take out of the document. It's the video that I had been using for it no longer works, so I just need to remove that, and I haven't done that yet. Je vais introduire votre deuxième tâche cumulative. So your second, or the second part of your culminating activity, so the equivalent to your exam. So la semaine dernière, j'ai introduit la première partie qui était la justice sociale sur les médias sociaux. Okay, so the first part was the social justice on social media. So you should be kind of working through that project. And then you have this second one, which both will be due on Friday. So les deux projets sont dus idéalement par la fin de la journée vendredi. Encore, si vous avez besoin de quelques journées pour le compléter, vous êtes bienvenus de le remettre un peu plus tard. Et la semaine prochaine, on va commencer avec le cours de carrière. So this will be our second and last week of the career or the civics course, and then next week we start with careers. So voici le Dropbox pour le travail d'aujourd'hui, ainsi que la deuxième tâche cumulative. Okay. So, je vais essayer de parler un peu plus fort. Je m'excuse si le volume est bas. OK, so, les documents. OK, so, voici le document pour aujourd'hui. OK, so, premièrement, vous allez visiter ce lien ici sur une vidéo de YouTube qui va revisiter la séparation de pouvoir. So, on a discuté les responsabilités municipales, provinciales et fédérales. Okay, so this is just a kind of a quick review video on the separation of powers. So which levels of government have which responsibilities. So just make sure you watch that. Question numéro 2, ici, on a un court article sur l'histoire de la Constitution canadienne. So, la Constitution est le document fondatrice de loi d'un pays. Okay, so a constitution, you've probably heard the term before, and if you're not sure what it is, the Constitution is kind of the foundational set of laws for any country. And those are the laws upon which those are the laws upon which all of the other laws of a country are based off of. So le Canada a reçu sa constitution en 1867 quand elle a reçu l'indépendance de la Grande-Bretagne. So Canada received its constitution, its first constitution in 1867 through the British North America Act when it gained its independence from Britain. It was a constitution that was given to us by the British government, so there were limitations to it. Et c'est finalement en 1981 que le Canada a rédigé sa propre constitution. Okay, so it wasn't until 1981 that Canada, kind of as an independent country, wrote or adopted its own constitution. So ce document ici explique un peu le processus de cela. Okay, so this article kind of explains the process of how Canada gained its kind of new constitution, how it tried to amend it. So there were a couple attempts to make some changes. So it talks about that. Et ensuite, vous avez des questions à répondre sur le texte. Okay, so these questions here you can answer based on the information found in the text. You don't need to necessarily go out and do extra research. Just do your best to kind of answer based on what you've read. Ensuite, partie numéro 3, on regarde aux fonctions du gouvernement. So, idéalement, vous allez faire un peu de recherche sur les 3 séparations de pouvoir de la démocratie. Et ensuite, il y a 2 courtes bandes dessinées où vous pouvez répondre des questions. So, la démocratie, qui est notre forme de gouvernement, sépare les différents pouvoirs en 3 différentes sections. Okay, so democratic countries separate powers into kind of 3 different branches of government. And those branches are meant to be separate so that one cannot kind of influence or corrupt the other. Okay, so on a le pouvoir législatif. So le pouvoir législatif est le corps du gouvernement qui écrit, débat et crée les lois. Okay, so the legislative branch is kind of the body that debates, that proposes, that votes on laws. Ensuite, le pouvoir exécutif est le pouvoir qui prend les décisions de jour à jour. Okay, so the executive branch is kind of the branch that takes care of kind of the day-to-day business of government. So, for example, they're the ones that make up the budget on who gets to spend how much money gets raised in taxes. They decide how to enforce the laws that are voted upon by the legislative body. So they are kind of the day-to-day operation. Et ensuite, le pouvoir judiciaire, so the judicial branch, est le corps qui décide si quelqu'un a brisé les lois et quelle est la punition. So the judicial branch is the branch that decides, if somebody broke the law, they decide if they're guilty or innocent, and then if they're found guilty, what is the punishment? Okay, so those 3 things have to be separate from the other. Because if you have the people who are writing the laws also deciding who has broken the laws, there is potential for corruption there. Same thing if you have the people kind of who are in charge of the executive branch, again, deciding who is guilty and stuff. You have the potential for abuse of power. So, la séparation des pouvoirs signifie que ces trois pouvoirs sont indépendants l'un de l'autre. Par exemple, le chef de l'exécutif n'a pas le droit de nommer les députés, ils sont choisis par le peuple. Le chef de l'exécutif n'a pas non plus le droit d'influencer les juges. Chacun remplit sa fonction indépendamment de l'autre. Okay, so in Canada, okay, so let's start with the maybe different types of democracy. So we have Canadian democracy, we saw, is a constitutional monarchy, right? So we have political parties who form the parliament, and then the leader of the party that has the most votes is the prime minister. Okay, so le Canada a un système de monarchie constitutionnelle, donc il y a un parlement. Les membres du parlement sont votés par les citoyens du Canada et le chef du parti qui a le plus de membres élus devient le premier ministre et est le chef du pays. Okay. So le premier ministre est le chef de la branche législative. So as the kind of leader of the party that has the most elected members, the prime minister is the leader of the legislative branch because he is the head of the parliament, because his party controls the most seats. In Canada, the prime minister is also the head of the executive branch. And we'll look at that, I think, in tomorrow's lesson. But as I mentioned in the paragraph here, the prime minister, as the head of the executive branch, cannot name members who he cannot kind of name who belongs in the in the legislative branch. So it's not the prime minister that decides who the members of parliament are. It's the people of Canada. So that is how that kind of separation exists there. Whereas in the United States, that separation is a little bit greater. So the legislative branch in the U.S. is the senators and the House of Representatives. They are the two bodies that debate and decide on laws. The president is the head of the executive branch, and the president of the U.S. has nothing to do or has no authority over the legislative branch. So he has nothing to do with the House of Representatives. He has nothing to do with the Senate. So in the United States, that separation of power is set up a little bit different than it is in Canada. Okay. So, pourquoi est-ce que la séparation des pouvoirs est-elle importante? So, les deux bandes dessinées ci-dessous illustrent l'absence de séparation de pouvoir. Okay, so the two little comic strips down here illustrate why it's important to have that separation of power. So this here is your, so this here, these first 6 boxes here are the first comic strip, and then you've got the second 6. Here is the second comic strip. So, faites de votre mieux pour répondre ces 3 questions ici, basées sur les bandes dessinées. I'll admit they are a little bit cheesy, but they get kind of the point across. Ok, question numéro 4. So, faites la lecture et jouez le jeu pour le processus législatif. So, follow this link and you'll see how a proposed law gets transformed into an official law. Okay, so just kind of go through what is found at the link. Et numéro 5, vous avez ici une vidéo pour apprendre comment une loi est créée au Canada. So again, you can follow this link, watch the video, and then this is question number 6 where you do not have to do or answer question number 6. Ok, so ça c'est votre travail pour aujourd'hui. Je vais maintenant vous introduire à votre deuxième tâche. OK. Pour ceci, vous devez créer, développer la structure d'un nouveau pays. Okay, so you're going to have to kind of create and develop the structure for a brand new country. So, la façon dont vous allez me présenter ce projet est à votre choix. Si vous voulez utiliser Word, PowerPoint, encore, le logiciel avec lequel vous êtes le plus confortable est celui que vous pouvez utiliser. Okay, so I'm not too concerned with how you format this. Use whatever software is most comfortable for you. So if it's PowerPoint, if it's Word, if it's, whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as Monsieur Levac and I can open the file, that's all that really matters. So, premièrement, vous allez créer un drapeau. So, les drapeaux sont importants et symboliques pour un pays. So, make sure so create a flag. Make sure that they're, usually colors are symbolic. The shapes that are used are symbolic. So, think about what those symbols mean and just kind of create your flag and explain to us in a sentence or two what those things represent. Vous allez créer une devise, so create kind of a logo. So la devise du Canada est Amare usque admare, so from one ocean to the other. Celui des États-Unis est In God We Trust. So ta devise doit être courte et efficace. Okay, so la devise du Canada est en latin, so it's Latin. So si vous voulez utiliser une autre langage, vous êtes bienvenu, mais faites certain de nous donner la traduction. Okay, so again, kind of a simple slogan that tells us a little bit about your country. Ensuite, pour numéro 3, so vous allez choisir un style de gouvernement. So, on a vu la semaine dernière les différents types de gouvernement. So, vous allez choisir le style que vous croyez est le meilleur. Okay, so est-ce que c'est une démocratie, une monarchie, une autocratie? Si tu choisis une démocratie, sera-t-elle comme celle du Canada ou des États-Unis? So faites attention aux différences. Okay, so again, give me a little bit of detail. What kind of government is it going to be? B, vous devez écrire un paragraphe qui explique le type de gouvernement que tu as choisi et pourquoi tu l'as choisi. Okay, so you're going to write a short paragraph that explains the type of government that you've chosen and why you've chosen it. So tell us, why do you think that is the best type of government for a country? And then, comment fonctionnent les élections? So how do the elections work? This is something that we'll cover in the next couple of days. Fonction du gouvernement, so combien de provinces, états, territoires se trouvent dans ton pays? So if you kind of imagine your country on a map, how many provinces or states or territories are there in your country? Expliquez la division des fonctions entre votre gouvernement fédéral et autres gouvernements. So, est-ce qu'il y a des gouvernements provinciaux, des États, des municipalités, des régions, des seigneuries? So, I want you to explain the division of responsibilities between your kind of federal government and then other levels of government. So, for example, in Canada, we have federal, provincial, and municipal. How are those levels kind of broken up in your country, and what is each level of government responsible for? Okay. Si vous voulez utiliser le Canada comme inspiration, vous êtes bienvenu, mais encore, expliquez pourquoi vous avez choisi chaque niveau pour avoir cette responsabilité. So it's all about kind of looking at your explanations, your reasoning as to why each level has that specific responsibility. Numéro 5, quelles seront les bases de l'économie? So, tu dois choisir et expliquer deux choses, soit des ressources qui seront à la base de votre économie et bien les expliquer. Expliquer quel type de terrain il y a dans ton nouveau pays. So I want you to choose two things that are the kind of basis for your economy. Maybe they are different natural resources. So if you think of Ontario, you think of things like mining and forestry, especially in Northern Ontario, right? That is the kind of the driving force for the economy. Maybe it is, maybe your government will be based on energy production. So maybe your country has a bunch of rivers, and you do hydroelectricity, and so you can create electricity that is green and good for the environment. Or maybe you have solar farms. Or maybe your country will be a crypto mining country, right? Maybe that is kind of what most of the people work in. Maybe it's insurance, maybe it's travel and tourism. So what are two things that your country kind of bases the bulk of its economy or its money production from? Numéro 6, des droits et des libertés. So, indique 3 droits que les citoyens auront et 3 libertés. Tu peux t'inspirer de la Charte canadienne des droits et des libertés. Écris aussi un petit paragraphe pour expliquer pourquoi tu l'as choisi. So this is something that we're going to look at tomorrow. So we're going to look at the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms, and that's where that, again, is part of that new Canadian Constitution that you're going to read about today. And that lays out what are the rights of every citizen and what are the freedoms of every citizen. So you're going to kind of look at those and pick what are the 3 rights and the 3 liberties that you believe your citizens should have. So, numéro 7, parmi les 4 domaines suivants, lequel sera le plus important dans ton nouveau pays? Sur l'éducation, la santé, la force militaire ou l'environnement. So of the following kind of 4 domains, which will be most important for your country? So education, health, services, military force, or the environment. So tu dois en choisir un seul et bien l'expliquer. Par exemple, si tu choisis l'éducation, tu peux développer les points suivants. So à quel âge les enfants entreront à l'école, les garçons et les filles dans les mêmes classes. Au secondaire, est-ce que tous les élèves devraient aller sur le marché du travail pendant 6 mois à temps plein avant de pouvoir compléter la 12e année, les sports en priorité à l'école, etc. So, for whichever one that you choose, you need to kind of go into some details and explain a little bit about it. So, for example, if you choose education, you can kind of develop the following ideas. So, at what age do kids go into school? Will boys and girls be in the same classes? Will they be separate? In high school, do students maybe have to go work for 6 months full-time before they can graduate from grade 12 to give them some kind of real-life work experience? Are sports a priority in school? So is that something that everybody has to do? Are arts a priority at school? So be fairly creative. Think about your own experiences and what would make that better. Same thing with healthcare, military, and the environment. Numéro 8, information sur la population. Sur les gens, la population active travaillera jusqu'à quel âge? Est-ce que les personnes âgées devraient avoir un rôle spécial puisqu'ils ont la sagesse? Est-ce que le chômage existera où tout le monde aura un travail? Y aura-t-il des services sociaux? Est-ce que c'est une société capitaliste? So question number 8 is information about your population. So again, you're going to kind of imagine your country, and I want you to tell me about the people that live there. So, whoops. Oh no. Ok, salut tout le monde, je m'excuse, là, j'ai perdu connexion. OK, so, est-ce que vous pouvez m'entendre? OK, merci. OK. OK, so je vais... Est-ce que vous avez... OK, so je vais continuer avec numéro 8. Est-ce que c'est correct? OK. OK, so... OK, so numéro 8. C'est encore la population. So, the people in your country. Is there going to be kind of a mandated retirement age? So is it that everybody by the age that they are 55 no longer have to work? Or is it 65? Or kind of what age will that be? Or can anybody work until whatever age they want? Will the elderly have a special role in society because they have all this life experience? Will there be a welfare system so that people who are maybe unemployed can still get some money and aren't forced into homelessness? Or will there be work provided to everyone? Will there be different types of social services? So, for example, in Quebec, parents can spend, I believe it's $10 a day on their kids' daycare, and the government helps to pay for the rest of that, which is quite inexpensive. Will there be other types of services that the government offers to help their citizens? Will it be a capitalist society? So will people have the right to own businesses, or will all the businesses be owned by the government, which again is kind of dependent on the type of government you have. So tell me what kind of people, population you have in your country. So vous allez présenter votre plan pour ton pays. No, you won't be presenting that in class. You're just going to submit that to us. Okay? So, ce travail ici est dû par vendredi à la fin de la journée. Votre autre tâche cumulative est aussi du vendredi. Okay, so, cette semaine, je crois, on va avoir semblable à la semaine dernière, je crois. Je vais être capable de vous dire pour certains demain, mais je crois qu'on va avoir encore une leçon lundi, mardi, mercredi, et jeudi et vendredi vont être des journées de travail pour que vous puissiez compléter vos activités cumulatives. OK, so c'est tout pour aujourd'hui. N'oubliez pas, comme toujours, si vous avez aucune question, n'hésitez pas à contacter soit moi-même ou Monsieur Levac. Et je vais rester autour pour quelques minutes si vous avez des questions. OK, merci beaucoup tout le monde. À demain.